everybody, and welcome to the Human Echoes podcast, the show where we review oddball movies, have oddball discussions, and occasionally take questions from you, the oddball fans.
I'm Tony Southcott.
I'm Albert Berg, and the oddball movie for this week is The Other Guys, the 2010 film from Adam McKay that features a couple of non-typical cops. This is a movie that sets itself up as an action movie to begin with, and then shifts tone fairly early in the film to the non-action heroes.
The buddy cop movie.
Yes. It's a deconstruction, I would say, of the buddy cop movie, and it follows these two characters played by Will Ferrell and Mark Wahlberg as they investigate something that is definitely not a drug heist thing.
Definitely not.
I love it's Adam McKay, I'd say, making the proto Big Short movie. You can really see him coming out with these ideas about the financial sector and the too big to fail, and kind of his offense that these giant crony capitalist types essentially get off scot-free because, well, they're running the thing that employs everybody else, so we're going to give them all the money, and most of them are going to go to prison, so that's cool.
It's like I'm looking at his movies, and other than like Anchorman 2, it's like Untitled Dick Cheney Project, Secession, Bad Blood, The Big Short, like all these other ones that are about like financial crisis situations.
Well, he also did Step Brothers and Talladega Nights, and I think the Anchorman sequel. He's directed.
I think he did both the Anchorman movies.
Did he direct? I thought
he wrote Anchorman Legend. I'm not sure if he directed that one.
Okay, well, I could have been off on that one. I know he's worked with especially Will Ferrell before in some capacity or another. So he starts off his career as kind of this, slapsticky comedy guy, and moves into this. And I think, honestly, Tony, I've seen The Big Short. I like The Big Short. I think The Other Guys is a better movie. Like, The Big Short is a really great clip show about, financial problems.
If you're looking for a comedy, of course, it's going to be a better movie, but The Big Short was fantastic, and this movie is, like, okay and funny. So
I think this movie's better than okay. I think there's some problems with the third act.
It just depends on how much you like Will Ferrell, really.
I don't know.
Which is if I were to rate him, I put him maybe one step above John C. Reilly as an actor.
All right, but his hair is better, right?
His hair is pretty terrible, but he at least isn't distracting to the point of me not being able to watch.
Okay.
His mannerisms are almost to that level. But I still find a way to love this movie despite Will Ferrell.
So you were okay with the comedy. Tell me what your problems were overall with the movie then, Tony, because I obviously liked it a little bit more than you.
It's mostly about the 12 times that I have to mute it so I can't hear the cringy things happening. It's my
really?
own. Yeah, it's my own stuff.
Okay, what kind of cringy stuff bothers you?
Like whenever they keep having the old lady walk out and deliver the messages back and forth between him and Eva Longoria. And I know it's funny to have the whole like strange looking dude with the super hot wife and everything. I just never have thought that bit was funny. Like maybe a little bit in Parks and Rec, but it's just it's a bridge too far for me to like believe.
Well, obviously it's unbelievable. I mean, the characters in the movie don't believe it.
Yeah, but it's so unbelievable that it's not funny.
I think the fact that he goes so over the top, like insisting that she's not hot and kind of running her down, is what makes that joke funny to me. Like, it's fine. I'm fine with it in Parks and Rec. I don't necessarily believe it, although that's like not there. Sometimes people are interested in things other than physical attractiveness, but the whole point of that character is that he's kind of clueless about women and why they're into him and doesn't understand them. And so, like, the fact that he's sort of out of touch about how hot his wife is totally fits in with all of that.
Well, they tie it up a little bit later whenever they talk about, like, the reason why he runs her down so much is because he's kind of insecure.
Yeah, and I think that also plays into the fact that I think this movie has some really interesting character stuff in the middle of this slapsticky comedy. The fact that this guy is living out his life trying to stay away from any kind of conflict and be as safe as possible, and he's being forced into that. And Mark Wahlberg, on the other hand, is clearly cut from kind of the same cloth as these action hero cops we see before, but he's been put down so far by this mistake that he's made at some point in his career that like he can't get out there and do that. But when he has the chance to shine in these action moments, he's amazing. There's that scene where he beats up all the motorcycle riders with their own helmets and like
just like launches it, hits him in the back of the head and sends him into a car, like all sorts of stuff.
And that
or
all
whatever, he
plays
can
in.
power slide across a table like 60 feet.
I think I really love that scene. I feel like the ending of this movie kind of goes into the action stuff that it was avoiding a little bit, and I think that the third act is maybe the weakest part of the movie. It stops being funny and just kind of turns into an action scene for a lot of it. Not stops completely.
It has a little
funny.
bit of that, like kind of like how Hot Fuzz went from like just being a little bit slapsticky and everything to being the prototypical action movie. But they built that up with a lot of action movie elements more than the other guys did.
I also really, I mean, I don't think of Hot Fuzz as being terribly funny. That's one of those movies that I look at and I'm like, I get that there are jokes in here, but I'm more just sort of appreciating the filmmaking, and some of it's funny. But this is a laugh out loud comedy for me. This hits my style 100%, especially having seen it already and remembering the bits as they're coming up and knowing that you're going to have the lion versus tuna conversation and how long that plays out.
See, that's just a complete difference in our styles because, like, I would say that Hot Fuzz is at least twice as good as this movie. But I still like this movie a fair amount.
I think it's a better movie. I just don't think it's as funny. If we're talking about, like, just what makes me laugh, yeah, Hot Fuzz is great. I mean, Edgar Wright is miles.
This is also like a movie that's heavily relied on for improv and everything, and you get to see Will Ferrell's skills there, and it led to some really, really hilarious moments, like especially after they were like blown up outside the accounting office, like just all this stuff, where you know that they probably did like 30 different lines just trying to find the right one.
I love Mark Wahlberg's response to that. You shut up! That was accurate!
Everything in Star Wars is accurate.
One of the things that Adam McKay was worried about casting Mark Wahlberg was that he's like, well, this is a big Hollywood actor. Like, he's sort of outside of this kind of close-knit improv comedy kind of team. He was worried that casting Mark Wahlberg would throw off that rhythm and that he wouldn't be able to sort of riff with the other guys. And he said, basically, it took him one scene to really get into it. And then he was totally sort of batting them back and forth with Will Ferrell, with the best of them, which I like to hear, because you do get, it doesn't feel like they just went completely off the rails. There is a structure to the improv, and obviously many of these bits were scripted. The song that he sings in the bar, where they're just like in between talking about the case, he's like, oh, it's my part. And he stands up and sings like the ridiculous Irish, like, I don't know what you would call it, dirge, I guess.
Close enough.
And all of their Harry Potter books were burned. I just love every bit of that. I think that it's brilliant and wonderful, and it makes me laugh. And I think it has something to say as well, because the whole idea of the other guys is not just some kind of like, these guys are dumb and stupid, yuck, yuck, yuck. It's that we're conditioned to think of the sort of Miami Vice type cops chasing down the drug, runners and having car chases and shootouts as the real policemen. But the biggest crimes in the world are ones that are perpetrated without a gun. Somebody with a computer transferring some money is like, it ends up hurting so many more people and costing so much more money than the stupid drug war.
Yeah, it's like the first thing you see on there is The Rock and Samuel L. Jackson talking about how they'll let New York City decide if killing all these people and doing $12 million in damage was worth a quarter ounce of weed.
That was so great. It's like, they only...
Of course, they also had like automatic weapons and were shooting at cops, so there's like a little bit more to it than a quarter ounce of weed, but I understand what they were trying to say there.
Clearly that was absurd. Like, that's not literally how someone with a quarter ounce of weed would probably act in real life. But the point was that Like, was it worth what we've spent to fight that war? And I think that is really at the heart of sort of what we have to ask ourselves about the drug enforcement war that we're in right now, and the whole sort of prison system in general is, are these people being punished justly for the laws that they've broken? Is it worth it to fight this hard against these admittedly truly damaging and potentially life-threatening drugs, but are we doing more damage with the war that we're fighting?
I would always say yes to that, especially because I think people should have sovereignty over their own bodies and what they do with them.
Yeah, but I'm hearing a lot of these news stories recently, and I know that that's partly because we don't have the treatment options in the U.S., but I for whatever reason, popping up in my NPR One feed recently have been a lot of stories about people dealing with overdose zones, like a public library where there's a nice park nearby, and people go to shoot up and get high in the park, and they're like, yeah, yesterday we had 2 people overdose, and I'm the librarian, but I'm the closest one, so here we are with our, opioid. I don't know what the drug is that counteracts, but they're out there saving people, and I think,
Probably,
that's not good.
It's
I mean, it's
the
good
thing
that they're
is,
helping.
if they're addicted to heroin, a lot of times that's directly a result of being overprescribed opiates, and then whenever those opiates are all of a sudden ripped away from them, they end up going for what they can find, which is either going to be like Percocets on the street that cost a lot more, or heroin, because that's pretty cheap. Ever since the drug war started, the price of heroin and the purity of heroin has, the purity's gone up insanely to almost like 100%, and the price has gone down by about just to the point where it's barely above pennies to get this sort of thing. There's a weird direct correlation with the drug war at the price of drugs and the availability of drugs, because all you're doing is creating black markets that lead to situations where people can make a lot of money off of just doing the illegal thing. So it just creates this situation where you can't get these people treatment because you're spending billions on getting these drugs from coming in, but they come in anyway, and it ends up going into the type of people who are willing to break the law instead of through more regulation and all that. I don't know.
I'm not quite
it's hard to see
super libertarian on that subject, though.
Yeah.
I can't just be like, nah, whatever.
Well,
Let
you
everybody
also
do whatever they
you
want
haven't
to.
really experimented much with drugs or anything. You probably haven't even seen that many
That's
in
true.
real life. So it's a little bit different situation for you. I've lost a few friends to overdoses over the years. One of them that everybody thought was just an alcoholic, and he was actually secretly doing heroin, things like that. So I've seen a lot of the results of the bad parts of this, but I've also seen a lot of people who just want to be able to smoke a bowl at the end of the day and feel good. So it's just an absurd situation to me.
This is kind of a pet topic for us. I worry that maybe people get annoyed if we talk about it too much. I mean, we're not like Joe Rogan or somebody but I do think that there's something wrong with the way we're prosecuting this problem. I just don't know if I have the exact right answer to come back the other way.
Yeah,
but,
I feel I go a little bit far on the libertarian side, and you I wouldn't say that you're conservative on it, but
I'm in the ballpark with you, Tony.
Yeah.
I might just be a little bit closer to, we should still have some laws, guys. A few.
Yeah. Well, it's hard whenever you start saying people should be allowed to do meth if they want to. A lot of people are going to be against that. So it's one of those where I would rather see the money that goes towards enforcing this go towards treatment rather than punishment.
Yeah.
So
and obviously sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying maybe we should get back to the movie.
Well, I was going to say the other side of what the movie's talking about. So, it's poking fun at the drug enforcement stuff, but that's small potatoes. It's all about these little details that lead in, and it creates what I think is honestly a pretty compelling mystery. You have your little clues that lead on and little things that add up in the story. There's the whole scaffolding thing, that leads them to one thing, that leads them to another thing. You have the guy mentioning, oh yeah, we're going to go and do the pension fund thing. And it's just sort of offhand, but all these details matter to the story. And the mystery is actually, in my opinion, really well crafted.
Yeah, if you look at it from a story beat perspective, they set up everything that they paid it off very well. I couldn't find any real hanging plot points.
Also, big shout out to Michael Keaton as their boss. I'd forgotten that he was in this movie. This was in sort of a time when he wasn't doing a lot. Birdman kind of brought him back and was like, oh man, Michael Keaton. Michael Keaton, you guys. Michael Keaton. But he's great in this as their sort of, he doesn't want to deal with their crap. And plus he's getting crap from higher up about this case that they're prosecuting because people don't want them poking their noses into the financial sector. And he's hilarious in his own way.
And he's working in Bed Bath & Beyond.
Well, that's, another great... while it is very funny, it's also Adam McKay, I think, doing more of his sort of social commentary and saying, hey, we're not, putting enough money in the right areas of law enforcement. This guy, who is not a bad cop, all right? He gives these guys some crap because
the only time he's a bad cop is that he has very poor trigger discipline. Like the moment he's berating him for doing an office, what do they call it? Office pop?
Desk pop.
Yeah, desk pop. That's
that
it.
Scene, by the way.
He grabs the gun and he's literally holding it by the trigger. He's just he's got the worst trigger discipline ever as he's berating people for not being safe with the guns. Then later in the movie, you see him sitting there thinking and he's got a revolver to his head that he basically drops on his desk when the phone rings. There's a little bit of slapstick and everything there, but it was just well played. Plus the whole TLC bit that went through the whole movie.
It was actually, it's not through the whole movie. It's only at the end. I thought that it was going to be more of it, but
I thought there was one earlier.
There might have. You know what?
I'm pretty sure that about 30 minutes in, he does the don't go chasing waterfalls thing. Then
Don't go chasing waterfalls is when they go to see him at Bed Bath & Beyond.
There's some point in the beginning, he talks about not wanting scrubs and things. I'm pretty sure that's a beat that goes through most of the movie, and they just don't comment on it the first time.
Now, see, I don't know enough about TLC to know what the first time would have been. I only know Don't Go Chasing Waterfalls because of this movie. That's how out of it I am.
I had a sister in the 90s. I know way too much about TLC and Spice Girls and all this.
He's great. It's a... I don't know. This movie makes me smile. It makes me laugh when I'm watching it. It has so many bits that stick in my mind and just make me laugh out loud at thinking about them. And I think the story's smart. I think it's got some smart social commentary. And I really, really love everything about where it's coming from. The tone of the comedy works for me. It's none of the cringy stuff, I guess, hit me very hard. That scene where the old lady was walking across the street, I thought it was not as funny as some of the other parts of the movie. I wasn't on the floor rolling around laughing, but I wasn't hiding behind my eyes oh no!
Yeah, and it might not have been as bad as I thought it was, but it was just I muted it because it was just awkward and it went on 3 sections too long.
Yeah, I could have, listen, I did not need for that whole section to be in the movie. But it's, even the bit about Mark Wahlberg, though, ironically learning how to do ballet and and play the harp so he could make fun of the sissy kids.
Yeah, because we wanted to make fun of that fairy down the street. We learned ballet.
You learned to dance like that? Not ironically. What is the word he uses? It's not ironically. It's sarcastically. You learned to dance like that sarcastically? Yeah, I guess.
I think one of my favorite bits of the whole movie, though, is the bribe sequence.
It's not a bribe. You're offering us $10 million not to do our jobs.
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about where he gives them the courtside seats, and halfway through they realize that it's a bribe. Then they go back, and it's
he offers them something else.
Jersey Boys or Mamma Mia.
I think he gets it 3 times. How did you? By the way, were you bothered by the drop into Jersey Boys real quick, or were you able to handle that?
I could handle it because I thought it was funny. I also saw the Jersey Boys movie that was directed by Clint Eastwood a few years ago, so it was.
How was that? I heard it kind of get panned on Rotten Tomatoes. I didn't watch it.
I would say it was just okay.
Okay.
From a technical perspective, it's like a Clint Eastwood movie where things look really good and there's some feeling there, but it also felt really long. Okay.
I think there's something about it musical, on stage things can be way more impressive because your subconscious knows that people are actually doing those things live, and if they get it right, it's amazing. And if you try to transfer some stuff to a movie, it's yeah, well, they had as many takes as they wanted and special effects and all this other stuff. It just kind of loses some of the power of
Also
that.
with Jersey Boys, it was also like a biography type movie, not just like it wasn't them breaking into song during the middle of a fight or anything like that. It was actually about a band, so it's a little easier for me to stomach.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. I didn't know. I was unsure why you decided to go and see a movie that was clearly billing itself as a musical.
The answer to that is women.
Okay,
They like those movies.
good for that. That's
Some
fine.
of them do anyway, and I sometimes get dragged to them.
That's perfectly acceptable, Tony. Not throwing any shade. But yeah, overall, this is a movie that I felt like I needed to talk about on the podcast. It's been in my mind for the past, I don't know, month. We used to talk about it at Walmart when I worked at Walmart all the time. This guy I worked with, Cody, would quote stuff from this, and there are so many quotes with the sound of your piss hitting the urinal. It's feminine. And they're like, you don't have manly farts. Farts are like a baby blowing out a candle. Like there's so many little bits in here that are so ridiculous and fun that, and yet again, and even to mention, I talked about the societal commentary here, but the closing credits of this movie are like some of the best closing credits I've ever seen, and it's just infographics about like, oh hey, here's what a Ponzi scheme is. Here's how much Bernie Madoff made on his Ponzi scheme. Here's how much the TARP bailout cost, and here's how much that divides out if you gave that money to each individual person, man, woman, and child in America. So I loved all of that stuff.
Yeah, that kind of reminded me of Catch Me If You Can. It was Jim Carrey, Ted Leone movie. I'm going to pull it up real quick while you keep talking.
Well, I guess what I was going with that, and I've mentioned it at the beginning, but it really feels like Adam McKay is trying to work these ideas out of his system. He had this movie, and I like how it presents in this movie. It's got that very fun, it's comedy, but you have the social commentary in there, whereas in The Big Short, it's just telling you, hey, this financial situation, it's kind of messed up, guys. It was bad.
I also feel like The Big Short did a good job on showing people exactly how it happens and explaining a lot of different concepts that people might not have known. It's easy to get people to listen whenever you've got Margot Robbie in a bathtub.
But, well, I will say, yeah, The Big Short goes into a lot more detail of why the financial crisis happened and what, the mortgage-backed securities were about, whereas this is less about that and just more about the danger of the concept of too big to fail. That we have these companies that, I forget what the fake company name is, but their logo is, it's in everything. And maybe we don't need to have companies that are in everything. And I love I don't have a problem with big companies, okay? Love Amazon. Love is a strong word, but I'm fine with Walmart. I did not get treated badly while I was there. They kept paying me. I kept working. Some of the managers were, kind of difficult to deal with, but that's how work is. So I'm not like some anti-big business person, but I also think that there needs to be some limits.
I think it's just
balance.
like there needs to be healthy competition. Like you see Comcast going and trying to buy up like every other telecom company, and they're trying to merge into like one thing, and I don't think that's good for the consumer.
Nope. I know where you're at. AT&T's doing what I had been doing some of the same thing.
Yep.
Buying up a lot of merchandise. Although I use AT&T. I like their service. I'm not bad-mouthing AT&T as a company, but just the principle is competition breeds better consumer service and better, lower prices and better products and all that good jazz.
Yep.
We have antitrust laws for a reason. I know that it's true. I know everybody wants to get bigger all the time, and I understand that, but I'm happy that we have those kinds of boundaries, keeping people sort of from spreading into everything.
Yeah, and it doesn't seem like they actually get used all that often either. It's kind of an exception rather than the rule whenever they actually stop big companies from merging.
Yeah.
Also, the movie I was thinking of with Jim Carrey was Fun with Dick and Jane.
Oh, I think I saw that.
Yeah, it's basically like an Enron analog. Where
yeah, I was too dumb to realize that at the time, though. I was just like, I don't feel like this is that funny. And kind of...
There's some good moments in that movie. I wouldn't say it's as good as the other guys, but it was decent.
So you giving this what? Like if you had to rate it on a scale of 10, what did we give it? Like a 6?
I'd say 7.5 or 8.
Okay.
Like,
well,
I just really like Hot Fuzz.
I wouldn't. I'm not gonna go to a 10.
Yeah.
I've just thought that it was maybe like an 8.5.
Well, like, if you put it on a scale of comedy, you could probably push it up to a 9 at times. There are some seriously funny parts. I just, like, we were talking about Hot Fuzz earlier, and that's, like, one of my favorites.
It is an interesting thing to consider of, like, what particular part of a movie do you judge? If you're, like, there are some movies that I get into just for the world building. And I've defended the first 3 Pirates movies on those grounds before. It's like, I just really love the world that they built. I get that they get kind of confusing in the second 2, but I don't, like, it doesn't bother me. Whereas some other movies I wouldn't give that leeway to. And if a movie is, like, really hitting out of the park in terms of comedy, maybe you give it a little bit of slack on some other terms. Yeah. There's not like one thing that a movie has to do to be a hit, at least for Albert Berg.
That's why I always kind of break it into subcategories, because, like, if somebody's going to ask, like, oh, what's your favorite horror movie? What's your favorite movie overall? I just have to break it into the different things, because a lot of the horror movies I like aren't going to stand on the same pedestal as, like, The Godfather as far as, like, an overall good movie. But, like, if I'm talking about a comedy as well, you really can't compare those types of movies. So, like, I was trying to cluster them kind of together like that.
Well, and comedy depends on a certain amount of absurdity, right? Like, it is about the subversion of expectations. So when you're going into a comedy, it can't, like, mimic reality to a T, because if it did, then it would not be a comedy. It would be a drama.
Yeah.
It has to do something that you're not expecting, and I mean, even if it's a true story, like, it still needs to go to a point where you're like, oh, what? And you can't do that very often if you're just, like, going straight up the way things actually were.
Yeah, and it's like 2 of my absolute favorite comedies are just absolutely ridiculous in that. It's like Napoleon Dynamite and Hot Rod. Like, there is nothing smart about either of those movies. They're just funny.
Napoleon Dynamite, that's a good one. Have we talked about Napoleon Dynamite on the podcast before?
We've talked about it a lot. I think
like,
we reviewed it back in, like, episode 70 or something like that. I'm pretty sure we reviewed it at one point.
Okay.
I'm not 100% on that, though. We'd have to look it up. I know it's been brought up at least 20 or 30 times.
We have not. Apparently we brought it up in the Old Boy episode.
Yeah. And
either that or I don't know how to spell Napoleon.
We've also brought it up many, many, many other times. Like, as far as, like, if you were to take a tally of movies brought up on this podcast, that one's probably up there with Alien and various other movies. Like, it's just something we've come back to dozens of times.
Anyway, I think that'll do it for our talk on the other guys. Did we end up getting any questions, Tony? I know
we didn't, because I tweeted them out. I did want to say one last thing about the other guys.
Oh, go ahead.
And Adam McKay, the director, did have a short cameo in this, and it was pretty awesome. It was him as Dirty Mike, basically the homeless guy that kept using his Prius for, like, a bang shack.
We will have sex in your car!
It will happen again. So,
you know what they call it when a bunch of hobos have a gangbang in your car? Call it a soup kitchen.
But yeah, so props to Adam McKay for getting in on the comedy as well. And I think that's all we have to say about the other guys.
All right. Well, then, in that case, let's move on to trailer talk. Let's start with the tolerable stuff, Tony.
All right.
Did you get to watch this new trailer for It Comes at Night?
I did. Like, it didn't really give me a whole lot new on the movie. Like, I'm already sold on it, and I was also, like, fighting with cameras and lighting this morning. So while I was watching it, I was just like, I hate this. Why is this going on? Like, it's not you, trailer. I swear it's not you.
I'm actually gonna say it is a little bit the trailer. I'm gonna give this trailer a little bit of a piece of my mind. Not that I hated it. Okay, this wasn't, like, the worst trailer, but they're trying to do something in this trailer. They're trying to be, like, evoke this idea of claustrophobia, right? And they have, like, shots of the movie kind of sectioned off with lines, and then, like, in other, like, parts of the frame where they have the movie squished down, they'll have quotes relating
like Sylvia Plath and T.S. Eliot and so on.
And Charles Manson. also, also in that group of quotes that are noted in this trailer. Anyway, that didn't work for me. I got what they were going for. I like the idea. I thought, like, okay, I props to you for taking this swing, but it's not for me. It did not inspire. It just kind of made me squint at my screen, like, what? It's all tiny down there. I can't see what's happening.
That might have been it too. Like I had the lights in my eyes while I was trying to watch it, so I had to go back and actually see who the quotes were from, and it kind of made it a little bit choppier. But it is only a 1 minute trailer, so it's trying to pack a lot into that minute.
Well, yeah, and I again, a teaser, but I brought it. I guess I wanted to mention it because I am looking forward to this film, and I think that the other trailers have been interesting. It did drop. It took a pretty sizable drop from its place at 100% on Rotten Tomatoes down to like 86. So
Still certified fresh though.
that's fine. Yeah, no, I'm not. It's just like it might not be the best movie of the year. It might not quite live up to Get Out or John Wick 2 or Captain Underpants, but it'll probably be pretty good. And I'm just taking issue with the style of this trailer a little bit. I don't think this works. Good try, guys, but yeah.
Anytime we see something on this, I'm reminded of that, like a Ghost Story movie that's coming out. Like that's July 7th, something like that.
Is it?
Yeah, like it's coming up pretty quick. That's the one where it's just like the standard sheet over the head with the little eyes on it. I don't know why, like that movie seems so strangely evocative, but I like Casey Affleck, and we'll see how it turns out.
I am excited about that movie, actually. Yeah, it's not supposed to. I mean, might literally be a ghost, but the point is that it's like the idea of a ghost, the concept of a ghost. And I like that they didn't try to go for something weirder than that. That idea really works for me.
Yeah.
We'll see if it works in the movie.
What's the next trailer?
Next up, we have Tom Cruise in American Made.
This one actually interests me a lot because I've read up a lot on Barry Seal, like the Narcos thing.
This is a true story?
Yes.
I mean, I know that it is a true story, but you know about the true story?
Yeah, like there's stuff I really want to talk about with Barry Seal because like I like it whenever I can find like a conspiracy that's actually mostly true, and there are some really really weird things that happen with Barry Seal that especially things towards the end of his life that get very interesting, and also just like his work with Pablo Escobar, especially after watching Narcos, about the idea of the CIA dealing crack in various parts of the country to fund clandestine operations with Freeway Rick Ross and all this other stuff. Like he's right in the middle of all that, so it's really interesting to see.
Do you think that the movie's gonna go into some of this later life stuff, given what you've seen in the trailer?
I think so.
Okay. All right, I don't want you to spoil anything.
Yeah, I don't. That's what as I've probably actually spoiled what happens to him at some point on the podcast. I remember having a very distinct conversation about Barry Seal a long time ago, but I don't want anybody to figure out what happens with this. So like, I'm just gonna say, Tom Cruise as Barry Seal looks awesome. Like this looks like it's gonna be a fun movie. But I've also read like it's like Dark Messenger or something like that. I'll pull up the name. Tell people about the trailer more.
Well, I was going to say, to me, this feels like a little bit of a watered-down version of Lord of War. I mean, he even has that same speech that he gives, that the Nicolas Cage gives at the end of Lord of War, where he's like, I'm leaving here. He gives it in kind of a more of a jokey manner, and maybe there will be comedy in this movie that will, I mean, we talked about this already, the sort of measurement of tone back and forth, and how that, you know, a movie can succeed on one level without, you know, not failing in another level. So maybe this will be a completely different kind of movie, but it feels to me like that kind of story, that it's, you know, about, like it sort of starts out as fun and games. This guy is getting everything he ever wanted, and you can sort of understand where he's coming from because, you know, he feels like he's wasting his life flying passenger airplanes or whatever around, and he's got, you know, military pilot training. They don't make it look like the worst thing ever in the trailer. They have him go to like, you know, Baltimore or something for half a second. Like, oh no, he's a pilot. I get that that's a hard life, but that's I was not super sympathetic for him, but I understood the motivation of, hey, you can do something better, and they get him flying these drugs in, and the trailer starts out with him like crash landing in a suburbs, like, oh, you want me to land, DEA? Here we go, and like
He's
smashing
just
his
covered
plane
in
up.
cocaine and like goes over and pays off a kid for his bike. You didn't see me.
It's great stuff from that perspective. But I wonder if it's been covered already. And I mean, the obvious comparison also, you kind of have like Breaking Bad, where you had many, many seasons to sort of explore someone's psychological descent into, from normal guy into drug runner, well, drug maker, but still, that type of thing. It's going to need to have its own spin to really stand out. And
Yeah.
I don't see that yet from this trailer.
Well, I think that being that it is a real story, there's a lot of interesting stuff that happens here that could make it good. Like the book I was looking at as well is called Dark Alliance: The CIA, the Contras, and the Crack Cocaine Explosion. It's from journalist Gary Webb, and it's talking about how people like Barry Seal helped set up these networks that allowed the CIA to fund the Nicaraguan Sandinista Liberation Front. Like there's a lot of really cool stuff that happens there, and also there's a lot of talk that Barry Seal is actually the one who exposed Pablo Escobar to having worked directly with communists, which kind of started like the whole U.S. Contra affair. Like there's just a lot of really interesting things that happen with this. Like it's just like a whole set of dominoes that Barry Seal helped set forward. So, having known a little bit more of the background of all this, like I'm more interested in the movie.
Okay.
Also,
well,
like
cool.
you can
It
see
gives me some more hope too.
You can see a movie that was put out called "Kill the Messenger" with Jeremy Renner that came out in 2014 that covers a lot of this stuff.
Interesting. That rings a very faint bell, but I definitely never saw it.
Yeah, I'm not sure how good the movie was because like I just finished reading the book and I think I just skipped over it whenever it was in theaters.
Well, speaking of movies that you're probably going to skip over when they're in theaters, every once in a while we have a trailer on Trailer Talk that we have just because of how absurd it is. And this week, that trailer is Pup Star Better Together.
So you put this in like our hangout group for the whole company, and I was hoping I wasn't going to have to watch it. Because I ignored it then, I pretended it didn't exist, and then I get a message this morning, and it's like, all right, here's the trailers for the week.
I fully expected you to, like, 100% just come down with a hammer and veto it. Like,
No.
no, I refuse.
Sometimes my pain works better for other people. We got to fill an hour sometimes, and that requires extraordinary sacrifice. And I did not know that there was a production company based on the success of Air Bud. Much less did I know that there is a company that's making kids' movies where the dogs are basically like fully sentient, speaking to each other, running TV shows, and making what possibly looks like the worst movies that have ever been made. Like this...
Air Bud was fine at the time. I don't want to say it's a great movie, but it was fine.
Yeah, but like this
Who knew?
Yeah.
Who knew that it was going to spawn this abomination?
Yeah.
Like, you had Air Bud. It came to theaters. I'm sure kids loved it. It's got a dog. People like dogs.
I
And
saw
they made
it
a
on an
sequel.
airplane once whenever I was very young, and that I don't even remember anything of it.
They made the sequel, Air Bud, Golden Receiver. He's playing football. That's cool. It's Switch Sports, same dog. Probably not the same dog. The original dog probably died, guys. Certainly has by now.
Just like that hang in there kitty.
But...
Not hanging in anymore.
And he has kids. And the kids can talk to each other. And the movies get much more oriented towards just being for children. Like, really, really just being for
Yeah, I
children.
know that this is not meant for me. This is not made for me at all. But if I had kids, I would not let them see this movie. Like, I would pretend that it didn't exist. I'd be like... If they saw the trailer, it'd be like, wow, I can't believe that like the funding got pulled and they never released that one. It's amazing.
Well, the thing is, like, it's even So there's still like the decline because Air Buddies is a very successful series for what they are, like cheapo kids entertainment with the talking dogs. But the dogs only talk to each other. Like they can talk to each other as animals. But here they've taken it to the next level. And this is apparently a sequel, by the way. There's a pup star that we didn't even hear about. Okay, even me with my 4-year-old and 2-year-old haven't heard about the original pup star. But pup star better together, the number 2 together. The dogs have talk shows and singing competitions.
They're running their own version of American Idol.
Yeah. It does... And it gets so weird, like there's a flying carpet at one point. He's going to space at one point.
I don't remember them going to space, but I think I might have legit blocked that out. Like, I think I might have full-on blocked that part of, like, this movie out. I did not know they went to space. Like, I think my brain would not allow that to be formed into any form of memory.
I mean, they had the whole, like, obviously going to space is not beyond the realm of possibility for these movie series, because you had the whole Space Buddies movie. So just going to space for segment of the movie.
There was a Space Buddies movie.
Yeah.
How did that go?
They went into space. They had like a joke where somebody farted in their own spacesuit and they smelled it and they're like, oh! Because that's, funny.
I mean, what was the reason that they were going to space? Like, is there a dog space agency that they're heading up? Like, were they
No, I think it was, oh man, Tony. I don't even know. I'm imagining, there was Space Camp, right? There was a Space Camp movie where the kid ended up accidentally going into space. My vague recollection of the sort of like 2-minute segments that I happened to see when Dylan and Derek were really into those movies, and I just kind of like walked past the television as they were being quiet, and so I didn't want to bother things and rock the boat. My vague recollection is that they kind of accidentally got sent to space, and then they had to save somebody on the moon.
Okay.
There's not like a lot of logic to begin with.
I guess that's kind of like Jason X. It just happened.
Yeah, well, in Jason X, I always thought that the idea that, like, you would go to Jason and actually try to figure out, okay, this guy's immortal. What's going on here? Let's experiment. Let's figure this out. Let's draw some cells or whatever. Like, that premise is actually pretty cool. I fully buy into that. It's just, that movie didn't end up being really great.
Yeah, they just upgraded him. It's just bizarre.
Also, apparently there's a sequence which I didn't get to. I watched like 30 minutes of it and turned it off. But apparently there's a sequence where they're like in a holodeck type thing on the spaceship, and he's like back in the Crystal Lake from the the 80s era, which I thought that a lot of ideas in Jason X seem like really cool ideas to me, but I didn't enjoy the way they made them work.
Yeah, but you're not a big fan of the Jason series either.
That's true.
And I'm not.
I like some
I'm not
of
the
them.
biggest fan of it either, so I can't really speak to it. I enjoy a good slasher movie every once in a while, but I never got super into the Jason series.
By the way,
this Pop Funko.
I want to mention a couple superhero movies came out this week, and the best one was Captain Underpants. Come at me, bro.
Yeah.
I love that movie so much. I got to go see it with AJ, and I'm going to fully admit that like 50% of how I feel about this movie is because I like already have emotions like tied into the enjoyment of reading him those books, and how the books have a place in my heart, and the movie just perfectly replicated that. I was on the verge of crying from joy through like 50% of that film. And it's great, and everybody should go watch it if you like at all Captain Underpants.
Yeah, I know it didn't do that well at the box office, but it wasn't super expensive to make, so it might break even.
They did. I mean, they've captured the spirit of that book so well too. Like there's even the flip-o-rama. They like get to a big action scene and they're like, all right, well, this is way too violent to show young children, and it's expensive to animate, so we're going to show it to you in Flip-O-Rama, which, if you know the books, is the thing they actually do in the books, where they have, like, the two frames, one where somebody's pulled back, and then the second one where somebody's, the fist is punched forward, and the person's like, ah! And you flip back and forth, and make the punch sound, poof, 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 ah! And they do that. They even, like, at one point have the guy rip the page, because that happens every time you do Flip-O-Rama. because you're ripping the page back and forth so much. The style and the way they jumped into like different animation styles for different bits. The sock puppet bit was amazing when they're in the mall and there's robots. Just, it's such a wonderful love letter to creativity and friendship and the power of friendship. And that sounds like such a schmaltzy thing, but it boils down to the core and the heart of what works in those books and doesn't directly adapt any single one of them, right? Like it pulls concepts from all of them and kind of mushes them together in a movie in a way that many times will not work. But man, did it ever work really well in this one. And Wonder Woman was good too.
Yeah, Wonder Woman was very good to me. Like, I know that you thought it was just solid and you agreed with most of the reviews. But I remember watching that, and it was the first time in a DC movie where I kind of felt awed a little bit. And it was just refreshing to have that.
Well, to get back to, again, sort of on the scale, what scale do you judge something on? On the scale of recent DC movies, yeah, it's mind-blowingly good. But it left me feeling like a lot of the more recent Marvel movies have left me feeling. Like, I saw Doctor Strange, I like Doctor Strange, but kind of by coming out of it, I just felt like, yeah, that was a good movie. I liked it. I started watching it again on Netflix, but I wasn't like blown out of my chair or anything by how good it was.
I only got to see it for the first time like 2 weeks ago, so I was a little behind on the Doctor Strange train.
Well, by the way, best train ever. Just like in real, like literally, if you had like a train, that would make that movie so much more cool. No, but it is on Netflix now. Did you know that?
I saw it like right after I had paid $3 to watch it.
Aw, well, that's fine.
It's only a few bucks. I'm still supporting it.
And if you don't finish it, then you have the chance to go back and see it on Netflix, and you've supported it, and you don't have to feel bad.
Yep. But it was a solid movie. I liked it. I liked the way the ending was handled because it didn't feel just like a standard comic book ending. Like, and you also got to see some pretty cool powers, some really cool visuals. But with Wonder Woman, a lot of that movie was set up just by how good Gal Gadot is, and also the chemistry between her and Chris Pine's character. I think his name's Steven Johnson, something like that. And
Steve Trevor.
Steve Trevor, sorry. Like, just the two of them made that movie. Like, it was just so much better than the other DC stuff, and I would put it better than a lot of the Marvel stuff as well. At least
Also,
some of the more recent Marvel stuff.
Speaking of Wonder Woman, I've been seeing a lot of like I guess hot takes is what you call them on the internet about how Wonder Woman's not even the star of her own movie. That's not true in any possible way.
There's supporting characters, but she's in almost every single shot of that movie, and she's the one that's moving the plot, and she's the one who's growing as a character.
You're correct. And the moving the plot thing is important, by the way, because some people are saying, well, she has to, like, Steve Trevor's the one who's taking her to the front. Yeah, because she insists that he do that. Like, it's her initiative that is pushing him to, it's not like some other characters can't do stuff because of her. She gets to fight because she refuses not to fight. It's not like, well, Robin Wright's the one who teaches her to fight. She doesn't have any agency there. She absolutely has agency. She's like, teach me to fight. Your mom says no. I said teach me to fight, darn it. Like at age 6 or something. I mean,
that'd be like saying that Mike Tyson didn't have any agency because Costamoto taught him. That doesn't make any sense. You have to learn how to fight.
Like, you gotta, I'm fine with the, like, okay, it got a little bit mushy in the third act, and, like, I don't know that I, like, felt some of those big action scenes as well as I did, the earlier stuff, especially the No Man's Land scene, which was incredible.
Yeah.
But,
those ending sequences weren't quite as awe-inspiring as the other stuff, but this was the first time that I'd seen a love storyline in a comic book movie that I actually bought and cared about.
Yeah. They have great chemistry.
Yeah,
and she does Gal Gadot talked about the balance that she needed to find, because she's someone who, and I love this about the character, she comes out of Themyscira, she's naive about what war is, but she's not stupid. Like, she has this sort of belief in people that she has to sort of reformulate when she finds out certain things about how war happens, but she's not like a complete idiot, and the choices that she makes throughout that character transformation are really powerful. And listen, Gal Gadot, or whatever, we've talked
Pretty sure
about.
it's Godot, but I'm not 100% now.
Well, she said Gadot in the theater,
Did
which
she?
is, by the way, they had like a really weird like intro thing in our theater. Like, we wish you could be there with you, but I hope you enjoy the special screening. It's like, it's the Thursday night 7:00 screening. It's not that special. I go to these all the time, but she pronounced it Gadot. But
I need to change mine because she's the one who would know.
we talked about how she didn't have a lot of experience as an actress. Like, she's mostly been kind of bit parts, and she came from the modeling, world. And I think people were nervous about that, even in Batman v Superman, because she wasn't didn't have a ton of stuff to do in that movie. But with what the character was for this anyway, she pulled it off great. And I would not criticize any part of that. I think that some people are looking for something to criticize here, more than, again, not that the movie's perfect, but come on.
I mean, as far as like a Wonder Woman movie, you're not going to do much better than that for a first attempt. So I was very happy with it. I'm glad that they were actually able to nail one of these. I don't know what they're going to be able to do with Suicide Squad or the upcoming Batman or anything like that, or if it's just going to like kind of be the highlight of the DC MCU, or not DC MCU, the DC universe. I hope that they can keep it rolling, but we'll see.
We mentioned, this is sort of a weird segue, but I wanted to make it anyway. You talked about trains earlier, and while we are sort of done with trailer talk, I wanted to ask you if you saw the Murder on the Orient Express trailer.
No, I saw that there was a bunch of controversy behind it, but I didn't take the time to watch the trailer.
Controversy is kind of a weird word. People were making fun of it because there's an Imagine Dragons song at the end, and it's set in like 1930 or something. It's sort of an old, like a period piece. Takes place on a steam train going through, through Russia, or maybe the Orient of somewhere. I don't know. It's definitely the Orient Express. It takes place on a train, guys. It's a murder on a train. And they play this song, and everybody was annoyed by how jarring it was. I didn't mind because I hadn't heard the song before, because I don't know anything about pop culture, because I'm dumb.
I would say you're more distracted / sheltered.
I just have my own things that I'm into. I don't have time to, I don't listen to the radio, so I'm just like, I found this record at the store. I wonder if it's any good. I was just at a 50-cent bin at the thrift store. Put it in. MCAD bass mechanic. No, it's not any good. Okay, let's try again with this big bands and jazz. Hey, this is pretty good.
Yeah, so if you're going out of thrift store record bins, it's going to be a while before you find all the things you like, or Imagine Dragons.
Probably, although I bet they are releasing some vinyls. But I didn't mind it so much. The weird thing is, I saw everybody complaining about the song trailer, the song in the trailer. And there was a great bit where somebody replaced it with some other songs, but nobody complained about this. There was this weird neon blue font that they used. But I thought, that took me out of the trailer more than the song did. And I know that's a weird thing to say, but the font choice really didn't fit the period for me. So by the time we were using this weird glowy neon tube type font for a movie that's a period piece, and it doesn't really fit for, I was already braced for the weirdness of the transition.
That is a little bit of an odd thing to nitpick.
I'm just saying if you're gonna nitpick the song, it was a weird choice. But I did see a great mashup video where somebody took the ending sequence and just put other songs over it, other pop songs, which my favorite was International Harvester. I don't know if you guys know about International Harvester. It's a country song.
I don't.
I'm the son of a third generation farmer. Yeah, it was wildly inappropriate and delightful. So
that sounds like something JD would put on one of my streams. You haven't been on there as much lately, but the return of Toodles, aka JD Farmer Farming with the JD, has been interesting.
Shout out JD. You're so weird. There's also the fact that Kenneth Branagh does not look like any incarnation of Hercule Poirot that I've ever seen. And as you mentioned, you didn't see the trailer, but he's got the giantest mustache of all time, and he doesn't have the hats. So that's tricky.
I never saw the original, so I'm
This
like
is
completely in the dark for all of this.
I do want to wonder, do you know anything about Murder on the Orient Express?
Nope.
It's weird knowing the story already, going into this movie thinking, okay, I know how this wraps up. And it's a really cool wrap up. Like, the solution to the mystery is pretty neat, as were many Agatha Christie novels. Are they going to change it to keep people fresh, or what? Because what are you going to change it to? I mean, I don't want to say anything more specific than I already have, but if you change it, you're sort of...
I haven't heard of it at all, so maybe it would be new for me. And maybe
I hope
many
it will,
other people
yes.
that haven't seen the 1974 movie.
It's a good movie, and it's a good book, I think. I haven't actually read the book, honestly. But I remember really enjoying, especially the twist. It's not, in my mind, it's not as good as And Then There Were None. Like, that one's peak Agatha Christie movie for me. But Murder on the Orient Express is up there, and the twist is pretty well known among people who are Agatha Christie fans, and probably will become more well known as people get excited about the movie if they do. I mean, it's just an interesting theoretical question. If you were going to make this movie, do you change the twist? Like, let's say, and really, it could apply to anything. You know, if you're going to remake, let's say, The Usual Suspects or something, do you go a different way, or do you completely, copy what was already done?
I've always wondered about that movie because I never saw it, but I know what the twist is.
Okay, well, that does... There you go. I'm trying to think of a famous twist. Or, okay,
The Sixth Sense.
All right, everybody knows about the twist in The Sixth Sense, but I won't even say... I still won't say it, just in case. But if you're going to remake The Sixth Sense, there's no way... On the one hand, everybody knows the twist. On the other hand, you want to do something somewhat new and different, so how do you spin that in a new way? Do you spin it in a new way, or do you just do the thing that was already done?
That's a hard question with The Sixth Sense because it's so deeply embedded in the plot and the spirit of that movie.
You know what I would love to see? I would love to see M. Night Shyamalan remake The Sixth Sense. Because he would not be afraid of... I don't think he's so embedded in his own mythology that he couldn't... he couldn't take it a different way.
I just think he would do something simple like swap who was like the spirit type thing.
Swap?
Yeah.
What's swap? Oh, the ghost from the...
Yeah.
It's been a while since I saw the movie.
Make the kid the undead one.
Oh, okay.
Just something like that.
Interesting. Or you make it like... No, that wouldn't work. I was going to say,
we're trying to step around spoilers
zombies
for a movie that I saw
you said
in 6th
undead?
grade. Yeah.
It's like they're actually all zombies walking around.
It's like,
and then they just become uninvisible.
It's like you never saw him eat for the whole movie.
Bum bum bum. He was eating brains. Well, I think that is going to do it for our episode this week, Tony.
Yeah, it was
Thanks, everybody.
Little bit of a weird one, but thank you guys for sticking around. Thank you guys for always checking out Human Echoes podcast. If you enjoy this, look at becoming a member at humanechoes.com. Membership gets you a lot of really cool benefits, the bonus podcast being the biggest. Pins, postcards, personalized Christmas letters from us, all sorts of really cool things. So go ahead and check out humanechoes.com for more information there. Also, if you're doing any shopping on Amazon and you want to support the podcast without having to spend a penny more, go up to the top of humanechoes.com and click the Amazon link. It will put a cookie in your browser that for the next 24 hours, anything you buy, we get a 6 to 8% cut of. Really helps us out, doesn't cost you anything extra. And yeah, we all know you shop on Amazon, so just do it, damn it.
Next week, we will be covering a film that I saw a while back and really enjoyed. We're going to be talking about frequently asked questions about time travel.
Which we may or may not have announced at the end of last week's podcast.
Yeah,
we just kind of decided to push it a week because Al had the other guys in mind.
I just had it. I had other guys' fever. What can I say? I apologize if you guys watched frequently asked questions about time travel last week and we didn't cover it. But there it is. We're bad people.
Yes, very bad.
We apologize. We'll see you guys next week.
Have a good one.
Take care.
Bye.